Today on CityCast Philly, downtown Market East has seen a lot of changes over the past few years. New restaurants, office spaces, and apartments are popping up. Even the 76ers have their eyes on this neighborhood. I'm speaking with a reporter about what new development is still coming and why businesses are so attracted to this side of town. It's Monday, June 26th. I'm Trinity Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Ben Seal, you're a freelance writer here in the city, and you recently wrote a story for Billy Penn that explores the Market East redevelopment. I'm curious, Ben, what's so attractive about this neighborhood?
Well, it's a really important part of Center City, Philadelphia. I think when people think about Center City these days, they probably tend to think more so about the west side of Broad and areas a little bit over more near Rittenhouse and Walnut and Chestnut and the shopping district. But for a really long time, Market East has been an integral part of the city and both a cultural place, a place for shopping, and a place now where you've got Reading Terminal Market, you've got the convention center. There's a lot of action over there, but there's also perhaps not been the level of attention and excitement, I think, that a lot of people within the city would want it to show. And so redevelopment is coming, and there's a lot else going on, but it's an area that I think is really central to what the city could look like going forward, but maybe at the moment doesn't feel quite as central to what the city is today.
And I do want to add also, there's a lot of transit connecting folks to this side of town as well. You can catch the sub, you can catch many buses, and even the regional rail comes through and stops at Market East. For folks who are new to Philly or even longtime residents, Ben, what are the streets that encompass this neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking mainly here of the east-west stretch on Market Street, east of Broad and running really into Old City. But I think the one thing that I learned a lot in working on this story is how central it is to think about the north-south component of Market East, and that you're really talking down to Chestnut and even a little bit south towards Walnut and Washington Square, and north heading into Chinatown and Arch and Cherry. Those streets are really one large community, but I think the hub of it all is certainly on Market.
Now, this entire neighborhood is seeing a lot of changes. Let's break this down a bit. What's been built over the last few years of this overall redevelopment project?
Yeah, so you've got, I think, one of the biggest components of what's been going on in Market East more broadly is the change from the gallery to the fashion district and all the
Yes.
work that went into creating, that shopping area. The story that I wrote is focused on what's called East Market, and I pardon the confusion. I didn't choose the name, but East Market is a very specific area. It's a sort of micro community, I guess you could say, between 11th and 12th and Market and Chestnut, right across the street from the fashion district. And this has been a decade-long project that's been in the work by a bunch of investors who've put more than $1 billion into really revamping what this one square block area looks like.
And recently, you went to a ribbon cutting of that last phase of the project, which they're calling that Jefferson Plaza. Ben, can you describe what this is expected to be?
Yeah, so Jefferson Plaza is one of the final pieces of the bigger East Market redevelopment that they've been doing. The final piece is going to be Jefferson Health's Honickman Center, which is going to open next year, which will be a 19-story building and really the centerpiece, I think, of what Jefferson will be doing going forward. But also within that development, you've got retail, including a grocery store. You've got a hotel. You've got over 500 apartments. This is a place where I think they envision people being able to live and eat and play, and the plaza that just opened is a big part of that. It's a big open space for anybody in the city to come through and enjoy some time, eat some food, and hang out. And so it's an interesting part of a vision for what Market East can look like going forward.
Also have to mention there's a movie theater, right? There's bowling you can do down there. And before the pandemic, I used to use this area to do some commuting when I had to travel to and from New York. And I used to think like, wow, this is amazing to see all these big lights on Market Street. It almost kind of it was funny to me because it kind of like resembled Times Square a little bit with all of the LED lights.
It does get flashy over there, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Ben, what kinds of reactions have you heard about this redevelopment?
Yeah, I think that the East Market redevelopment, which it's been a long time coming, it's getting pretty rave reviews. As far as I can tell, it depends on who you're speaking with, of course. But I was speaking with Paul Levy, the president and CEO of Center City District, who certainly has a vested interest in the success of this area. But he said that it sort of sets the standard for what redevelopment in that community can look like. That it really emphasizes the street level and walkability and people being able to enjoy being out there without feeling like they're just surrounded by towers. And I think when you see conversations happening around the Sixers potential arena, that's one of the things that's an important part of it, is sort of developing an intimate scale is how Levy was describing it to me, that's really something that they want in Market East, a place where people can be at street level, go about their business, enjoy themselves, and connect the whole neighborhood from one block to the next. Inga Saffron, the Enquirer's real estate critic, who knows far more about real estate than I do, I think, but she was very pleased, it sounded like, with this project, how they've managed to bring things down to ground level while also offering so much up above the street.
Now, this all sounds so exciting to have this new walkability, new living and retail spaces. But as you mentioned before, the 76ers also have their eyes set on this neighborhood. Ben, tell us what they propose to build.
Yeah, so we were talking about the Fashion District earlier. The Fashion District, as it stands, occupies 3 blocks on the north side of Market Street. The Sixers arena, as they've proposed it, would take up the third of those blocks and put in the arena. I think there's a lot of room left to uncover what the final version of their plan would look like, and if they do it, it'll be a decade from now almost when it actually materializes, and probably a little bit later this year when we'll get a better sense of whether or not it's going to go forward. But they would be right on the other side of Market Street from this East Market development. And I think the sense I get is that this development is sort of, in a way, connected to the potential Sixers arena, that you've got residential housing coming into Market East for the first time in a long time in a big way. And there's an immediate ability to walk right on over to the Sixers arena for the folks in this area, to walk right on over to 13th Street and a lot of the restaurants over there. And so something like this could be a little bit of a connector maybe between some of the different areas of Market East where block by block things change quite a bit.
Right. And supporters of this particular project have also argued that this would be an economic boost to this particular neighborhood. It would create jobs. But Billy Penn has also been covering that there's been a lot of community organizing and pushing back on this proposal, because some groups say that the arena could also disrupt many different things. They could impact small business owners that are already established there and homes that are there. It could also change the traffic patterns, and we could see an increase of a lot of congested streets in this area. Ben, the city is still working on that study, right? Where they're going to look at some of these concerns.
Yeah, the city is working on an independent study, or independent from the Sixers, that is, who have put forth their own studies. And we'll see what they say about what's expected from all of this. But you're right, there's been a lot of pushback. I think there's a lot of concern for neighbors in Chinatown that what's going on with the Sixers arena would disrupt things that they've built over decades. And
Right.
there's potential harm there. I think that the Sixers certainly view it as an opportunity to improve the economic status of that neighborhood and so on. But I think there's really concern about being walled off a little bit, about Chinatown being a little more separated from the city in a way that wouldn't be healthy for the community and for the residents and businesses there. So it's understandable that there's some pushback, and I think we're going to have to see sort of where the powers that be ultimately land on whether or not that pushback is sufficient to say this might not make sense for the city and for the community.
Now, you also spoke with some real estate experts. What do they have to say about this particular idea?
We didn't talk too much about the Sixers itself, but I guess what I can say is I think there's a little bit of uncertainty still. I think if you talk to people, the economic rewards to come from putting an arena in downtown are unclear. History hasn't necessarily shown that will certainly work, but there's a lot of potential for, if you have 20,000 people sitting in a Sixers arena on a game night, to walk out and go to restaurants and bars in the area, to visit retail before coming to the game, and so on. And I think having residential buildings in the area is part of a continued effort to sort of to change what this all looks like going forward. And the Sixers arena is going to be, if it happens, it's going to be a giant shift for everything that happens there. But I think there's still change taking place in the neighborhood that will be there regardless of what happens with the Sixers.
So, Ben, overall, is all of this redevelopment of Market East a good sign for downtown sort of comeback post-pandemic?
It does seem like things are headed in a pretty good direction. I think the fashion district has maybe been a little bit of a disappointment that it's only got about 2/3 or 3/4 of its space occupied. And so there's still questions about retail and what that will look like. But I think having residential go into Market East for the first time in a long time does indicate that this is an area people want to be. And as soon as you have hundreds and hundreds more sort of high value apartments and a hotel and all that coming in, I think you're going to see a little bit more change taking place in terms of developing some of the areas that could use it. As it stands, there were some folks at the ribbon cutting who questioned some of the blocks near that area and said, it looks very different at East Market than it does throughout the rest of Market East. I don't know that everybody necessarily agrees, but it does seem like there's a bit of a block by block sense over there. And maybe this is part of a shift toward making it a more cohesive area and neighborhood.
All right, that was Ben Seal, freelance reporter. Thanks for joining me on CityCast Philly.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have a link to Ben's full story in our show notes. And here's what else Philly's talking about. Foreman Mills may soon close its Philly stores. WHYY reports the discount retailer expects to lay off hundreds of workers in early August if the company can't find a buyer. Foreman Mills did a massive layoff of 119 corporate employees at its Pennsauken, New Jersey headquarters earlier this month. And here's a really fun tool. A local artist, Henry Crane, created the first ever Philadelphia bookstore map. It's an effort to help you find independent bookstores and other bookstores around the city. KYW reports the hand-painted map features more than 40 stores. You can pick up your free copy at any bookstore or at a free library branch. Speaking of the free library, we've got a really fun episode later this week on the show about some fun resources you can find at your local branch. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode, tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter too. It's called Hey Philly. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye. That was all at the top, Lizzie, right all in here.